All right, I'd like to talk about video 175, Give That Player a Gun. We're setting up the first-person shooter controls, and I wanted to get a better perspective, so I dropped in a character from the Cinti Apocalypse pack, and then she's going to help me out figure out where everything's at. So the first thing is that the rigid body controller um, is centered at 0, 0. So the capsule is at 0, 0, which means that the player transform has to be vertically above the ground in order for, because this is at 0, 0. And as a result, if we drop children in, like when we drop the cool female in at 0, 0, the default transform, boop, she's like way off the ground. So in order to fit her into the capsule, we have to subtract half the height of the capsule. So which was 1.9 or 1.8. I increased it to 1.8 because her height is 1.8. And so we have to decrease her height by negative zero point 0.9 in order to for her feet to be on the ground. Okay, and then I changed the height of the camera. So kind of cool, the camera sits inside of the body so we can see the eyes. And so I increased the height of the camera until we were inside of her head so that we were in the eyes, or roughly in the eyes. Okay, and then I set the weapons height, so I brought the weapons up and just slightly to the right, adjusted their position vertically and horizontally, so that the weapons appear in the right spot. I'm going to undo that adjustment. There we go. Okay, so that the weapons all appear in just that right spot. Now each one of these weapons is also adjusted individually. So they're adjusted as a group, but then they're adjusted individually within that group. So you see the vertical and sometimes the Y value, but the Z value changes for a lot of the guns. Okay, this is to get them to be, for their sights to be in roughly the right position. So let's look and see how that works. Okay, so if we cycle the weapons here, I'm using the scroll bar, you can see the weapons are changing, and then they are lapping. So this is going up and then going down, all right? And so they're swapping there appropriately, and we can kind of see to their position now. So let's have a look here now at the code. All right, so the code is sitting on this weapons array, okay, and I called it weapon swap. And this is, I put it here because this has access to its children. Basically, I'm using weapons as a list. So if we look here, all right, we have our current weapon as 0. And then we're going to look at all of the child transforms of this guy's transform. So all of the child guns, basically. And the first thing we're going to do is turn them all off. So we take all of the guns and we make them false so that we can't see them. And then whatever the 0 element weapon is, we're going to set it true. All right, so we can see the 0 element gun. And then I provide two methods, next weapon and previous weapon, which are almost identical. Next weapon gets +1 and previous weapon is -1. And then the bounds check for next weapon is that we are greater than or equal to child count and then set it to 0. Previous weapon is if we're less than 0, set it to the last item in the array, which is child count -1. Then here we set the current weapon to be off to invisible, set the next weapon or the previous weapon to be true, and then current weapon gets whatever next or previous. Okay. And then I didn't do any controls in this. Instead, I just wanted to handle the weapon swap here. We've been working on, I noticed, separating functionality. We don't want to, so you have the class do its thing, and then you have a wrapper for the class. So the wrapper is this weapon swap controls object, which I put on the player. So the player has a weapon swap controls. And very simple, we get the scroll throw, cross-platform input, the mouse scroll wheel, and if it's increasing, go to the next weapon. If it's decreasing, go to the previous weapon, and that's it. That's how I did my weapon swapping and positioning the weapons in the camera so that they have the right height and position for the game world.